My first question for you, if my research is correct, you did some work for Polydor Records, even designing a James Brown sleeve. I'm just interested, was it
Yeah.
apparent then that album art was where your passion lay, or did it just kind of roll in that general direction?
Oh my, yeah. My passion for album art, goes right back to when I was about, Christ knows, 12, 13, 14. I mean, I was just enthralled by the whole thing.
Yeah.
So no, I mean the Polydor thing, no, that was that came much later.
Oh, right. If you had to think about iconic album sleeves that really inspired you, or I mean, which ones would you name as being your favorites?
I always answer this the same way. Marty Clarwin, who
Uh-huh.
designed Abraxas
Okay.
for Santana, and also the Miles Davis Bitches Brew
Okay.
is. I mean, I love those. I love the old psychedelic stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rick Griffin, who did some of the Grateful Dead album covers, a lot of posters for the Fillmore. Stanley Mouse in America, and over here, Hapshash and the Colour Coat, which was Michael English and Nigel Weymouth. Oh God, I love their posters. I've got a friend actually who's collected a lot of this stuff, the originals.
Worth a fortune now.
Houseboat, and I said to him, "You need to get this stuff insured." Fantastic.
Well, there was you probably know more about this than I do, but there used to be, I think there was Scandinavian in the late 60s, a design company called The Fool, and they were designing lots of psychedelic posters.
Simon and Marique, yeah, I know their stuff well. I went to the Apple boutique just to go and have a look at the huge mural that was on the wall there. Yeah, I mean, Barry, that was my era. That was my era.
But I was born too late for that era, but it's one that I just love dearly. If my wife would let me, I would love to have a Grateful Dead poster on our living room wall or something like that. But that psychedelic art.
Wives are our enemy, Barry. They're our enemy. They don't understand.
No, no, they don't. When it comes to designing a project for whatever artist, how much direction do you normally receive from the bands or singers, or do they kind of just leave it up to you to get on with it?
Runs the gamut of everything. I mean, it can be, it can be very highly choreographed, like with someone like Fish, for example. I mean, he knew exactly what he wanted in terms of detail. And I can remember the meeting with Marillion at the Torchlight Studios, and it was a huge list, things. Like to get this and that, and I was writing it all down, and put a chameleon in there, and right, okay. Why chameleon? Because there's a song on the next album which is features the word chameleon. So I didn't ask why. I just thought, well, this is shaping up to be a really interesting commission.
Sure.
And that's how I viewed it, a really interesting commission. I didn't know anything about the band, although by that time I had seen them. But I mean, it can be, Justin Hawkins, for example, is a very good artist himself, and he sent me a fantastic sketch that he drew. And it was there, really. I mean, what he wanted. And then there's other bands that it'll just be a title.
Right.
It might not even be a title. It might even just be an idea, maybe a few sort of lyrics that might be sent. So it can be anything, in other words.
Do you prefer being given metaphorically speaking, a blank canvas, or do you like lots of input?
Blank canvas, yeah. It's the enemy of art, the white space. I don't like, well, I don't know. I've got one at the moment, which is, having said that I'm semi-retired, I have taken something else on, and that is more or less a blank canvas, but to think about the legacy that particular band, and to incorporate just more of the same, I suppose. But to be honest, I don't mind. I mean, I'll take it. I'll take all of it, really.
Yeah.
Well, no, I won't now because I have cut down. But over 40 years, it can be anything. I mean, you mentioned Polydor.
Yeah.
I did some classical album covers for Deutsche Grammophon, and it was a series called it was Italian something. Italian Parade, or no, it wasn't that. I can't remember now, but anyway, it was all themes to do with Italian composers, and so I just had to find some connection with Italy. I mean, obviously you put scenes from Florence in there and stuff like that, but I mean, it was left up to me what I did.
Right. Okay.
I mean, the exchange between the artist and the either the musician or the record company or the band's management is always a rough visual. You know, it can be a sketch, it can be a bit more finished than that. And then if they think you're on the right direction, you get the go ahead. I mean, that used to be the way that you worked.
Okay. Didn't you work with the I might have got this wrong, but didn't you work with the Who?
God, I wish I had. I did something for them, didn't I?
Yeah, that's why I got this one now, because I'm going through kind of a Who obsession phase at the moment. I just thought I'd bring that up. What exactly you did with them?
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, that was my band. Them and Pink Floyd. I absolutely love the Who. Yeah, I did do something for the Who, but I can't remember who commissioned it. It might have been Bravado who was doing their tour merchandise at the time. I can remember the Black Crows.
Oh yeah,
they were with them, and they wanted some way of having a tour poster with the Black Crows and the Who. So what I did, in fact, there's a picture in the background here. I took the this famous image of the Who draped with the flag.
Oh yeah, it's iconic, isn't it?
Iconic. And I wrapped it around the Black Crows.
Oh right, okay.
And I thought that might be an interesting way to show both bands. So that is all I've done for the Who.
It's wonderful. It's still wonderful. About the album covers you've done, which one did you find the most challenging to complete?
I'd have to really think about that, and there'd be a lot of dead silence.
Should we come back?
Most challenging. I mean, the latest one for Iron Maiden was Senjutsu. Yeah, it was pretty challenging. I mean, I worked very closely with Steve Harris on that, and he had a very he had a very particular idea of what he wanted. And talking about roughs flowing back and forth, I mean, we went through a lot.
Yeah.
Before I got I got what it was that he was after, and I think 2 or 3 months worth of just things flowing back and forth. And I never forget, because I was going out with my wife Valentine's night. It was must have been 2 years ago. And he rang up just before we went out. I thought, oh no, because sometimes he can be on the phone for a long time, telling me what wasn't right.
Okay.
But he felt that I got it, and he said, that is it, don't change it, that is it. Because I was a bit notorious with him for changing things when he sort of kind of signed off. And but no, we got over the hump of the hill, and then everything flowed after that. Right. Which is the way you want it to go, really, because it's never, these days it's never one picture. There's always lots of elements. Now it's never just a gatefold. It's a gatefold, or in their case a triple gatefold, plus the front cover, plus other things, special editions, etc., onto the posters and what have you. So
I mean, when you come to doing that Maiden artwork, I mean, you're dealing with an iconography that was perhaps established with Derek Riggs before you. I mean, how much of yourself as an artist can you actually interject into the artwork you do for a band like Maiden? Obviously being very aware of its heritage.
Yeah, you really are. I mean, and the fans will soon let you know. Well, I mean, you can't. I mean, with Derek Riggs, as you say, it's so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
You are dealing with something which has got such a heritage. You can only bring yourself to the party in some way. I mean, there's no point, and this is what I try and say to the fans when they say, "Oh, Derek Riggs was better," or "Why doesn't he do, something with all the Easter eggs that Derek Riggs put in?"
Are you ever tempted like doing an Alfred Hitchcock and just sneaking yourself in every piece of artwork?
Not me, but I did put an Easter egg in actually, which was the hands coming up from the Trooper cover, which is in there, which some of the fans spotted. It wasn't too difficult to miss. You can, I mean, with all of the artists that came after Derek, we all bring something different to it, but we have to acknowledge that this is such an iconic character. You can't play around with it too much. But then again, there's no point in getting another artist involved and expecting them to copy it exactly the same. So for better or worse, be it me or Ikiront or Hervé or whoever it is, the artists that are involved now, we have to be allowed a certain amount of license. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, what's the point?
Sure.
What is the point?
Sure. I mean, for what it's worth, I think, Book of Souls, Senjutsu, the artwork on those albums are absolutely phenomenal. I think they're absolutely wonderful. I don't know if you've had any negative feedback from fans, but I just think it's absolutely wonderful artwork.
Thank you. Yeah.
A question my subscribers have asked me, I put this to you rather tentatively, is have you ever were you ever approached by the Hogarth-led Marillion to design any artwork for them, or do you think in their case it was, new broom sweeps clean, so to speak? They wanted to move away from that whole Fish era.
Only right at the beginning, and that was probably before Steve Hogarth had really got his feet under the table, I suppose you could put it that way. But so it was more driven by the management. I mean, they were working on Season's End. Fish was working on his solo album Vigil, which I was already working on, and so the manager called me up and said, would I be willing to work on it? And I said, well, because the split had been so acrimonious, it was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
To do that. So I said, well, what is it? Well, I had no idea what it was called or anything. He said, well, it's called Season's End. And we wondered if you'd do a painting of a sort of a landscape picture with all four seasons shown at once.
Yeah. And
at that time, not so much now, but at that time, I hated doing landscapes. I wasn't very good at it, and I felt I was more a figurative artist. So landscapes were commissions that I tended to avoid anyway. So I didn't like the brief, really. Sure. I mean, I could have gone into it and molded it more into my style, I suppose. But so that was the only time. And so I said, because of the brief and because of the situation between the two parties, yeah. I think they were a little bit suspicious probably anyway, and I've seen this in interviews as well, I was Fish's man kind of thing. And that wasn't necessarily true, but in terms of the briefs for the artwork for the previous 5 years, they'd all come from Fish. So we'd established a relationship in the past. I mean, the rest of the band were very happy to let us, run with them. They've been, pretty successful for the most part. So, you know, that's the way I went anyway. And that's the only time that I've been asked to do anything. I mean, apart from, you know, Fish era stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there probably was at the time, there was probably a desire for EMI, who Marillion were with at the time, to sort of hang on to those very commercially successful years, I guess, to replicate this artwork. And but also at the same time, the band, especially with the Brave album, wanted to complete Jester side, really, to get rid of all that artwork and move in a different direction.
Wanted the Jester side, Barry. Yeah, we tried to get rid of him, didn't we? But he just kept coming back. Well, you know, with Marillion, I think, yes, there was definitely a conscious effort to go in a totally different direction with Bill Smith. And
Fisher said that he wanted artwork that defined Marillion in the same way that Roger Dean defines Yes. So how did that Jester Symbolism come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he would draw that comparison. I mean, I certainly wouldn't, only in terms of the connection between an artist working for a band. I mean, because he loves doing landscape art, and I hated it. So
not even the fantasy stuff.
No, I wasn't very good at it. I mean, I often did landscapes, fantasy landscapes, usually as backdrops for science fiction books and you know, VHS covers, but I never particularly enjoyed it that much. And I've only really enjoyed doing one landscape, and that was for Feast of Consequences for Fish. I really did enjoy doing that. So much so that I thought, oh, I'll try and do a few more of these.
Yeah.
After 35 years of saying, no, I don't do landscapes. What was the question again?
Where did the Jester iconography, where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a poem, wasn't it, by Fish, written when he was a teenager, called The Crying Jester. And I think the band at the very start considered that they would want to carry on that tradition of having an artist, you know, design the record sleeve. But I mean, certainly with Script for a Jester's Tear, I don't think it had that sort of typical prog look to it. I think it had something, the residue of punk rock in there as well. I mean, it was certainly set in the everyday, you know, the nasty bedsit land that I lived in. I mean, that was my bedsit in the background there. So to put the Jester in there, I mean, he's a cipher, isn't he, for the lyrics? I mean, to work out why the Jester is there, you need to read the lyric.
Yeah. Did they have the title Script for Jester's Tear before the artwork, or did the artwork, the title inspired the artwork, did it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in all of my dealings with Fish, he has the title first. Definitely.
Okay. According to the notes of the deluxe edition of the Fugazi album that came out, it says that in terms of the artwork, the brief was vague. So how did you go about constructing that sleeve if the brief was vague, particularly?
It was more vague, yeah. I mean, I remember the first meeting that I had very well. It was the recording rehearsal studios. I think Nomis, was it, in Kensington? I mean, it was the same building where Bravado was, and there was all this talk about, you know, taking the story on or moving it forwards. So we would have the same room. We would have a room to set the Jester in. But then there was all this talk about Apocalypse Now from Fish, and which I couldn't quite work out how that fitted in. So it went from a very linear explanation for script.
Yeah. Of
this room, this Jester, and all these things that were in that room that kind of all made sense, to something a lot more, vague would be, you know, the right word, because it was a more clean room. It was more 1984, because that was the year. It was a room full of tubular steel furniture and clean, you know, a very clean look to it, like a modern hotel room, like a Hilton hotel room or something like that. And then the Jester lying on the bed with all the other things that was prescribed.
It's wonderful though how you got the image of the Jester that anchors the Gothic melodrama of that first sleeve to this as you say, a depiction of a Hilton hotel room. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, that was a conscious effort to make it look very different to the first one, you know, by me, and I think by Fish as well. He wanted to. I mean, it was supposed to be illustrating a band on tour in many ways, and the first album was supposed to be illustrating writing in the bedsit room before maybe the band had even got together. I mean, these are all vague links.
Yeah,
you know, you don't need to take any of this spot on. It's just a way to describe the narrative of the songs.
Sure. You designed some posters for the Monsters of Rock festivals, if I'm not mistaken, which led to your work with Judas Priest. Now, you've said that the Four Horsemen is perhaps one of your favourite pieces. I wonder if that's still the case and why.
Yeah, I think it is, because it was it was a vehicle for me to illustrate 4 or 5 different songs on the album. I mean, it was an opera. It was an opera, really. They were really trying something very different, and so it meant a lot of individual illustrations to fill up this special edition. I mean, we were always talking about doing something a bit special with the presentation, the packaging. As I said to you earlier, you know, it's not just about the record cover anymore. It's if you've got a special edition, you know, you've got dozens, possibly 100 pages to tell the story of the album. So you don't need to expose the whole idea of what the album is about in very intricate detail on the front cover. You can do that throughout the pages of the book, or in that case, a box set. So Four Horsemen was a way to do that, because I think there was war, death, etc. I think there were song titles to do with the Four Horsemen, and I mean that was, I spent ages on that. I spent much longer on that than probably any other album cover that I've ever done for them. And
so you designed the 50 Years box set as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did do that. Yeah. Yeah, mind you, that did take a long while. That was more of a graphic solution.
So,
but what is it? Yeah, I think it's my favourite, probably.
Yeah. What is it specifically about that artwork then that really resonates with you? Do you think as an artist? Was it the images used, or?
I don't know. I mean, it was a challenge, that's for sure.
I bet.
I mean, along with landscapes, I'm not crazy about horses. I mean. Don't mind the riders, but the horses were quite a challenge. So
yeah. I have one question asked by a subscriber. Said, who perhaps an artist themselves, said, "What medium do you like to work? I don't know what that means. I think a medium. I think of Doris Stokes. But what medium do you like to work in?"
Doris Stokes. Yeah, I work with Doris Stokes.
Going back a bit, of course.
Annette, sorry.
Going back a bit with Doris Stokes, I think. I don't know if anyone remembers her.
I do remember her. More like Mystic Meg now. Well, an airbrush. I mean, that was how I started.
Okay.
Which, yeah, got one here. That's an airbrush.
So that's what's meant by medium in terms of what equipment.
Yeah, that's medium. You put the ink in there, link it up to an air compressor, and press the button, and it's a bit like a graffiti artist, you know, spraying, but you can get very, very fine detail. So that's the medium that I still use. I did an airbrush painting for the very last picture in Weltschmerz was the Jester again.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be my final comment on the Jester, but I used an airbrush for that.
Okay.
We use acrylics now, acrylic paint. So in answer to that person's question, acrylic paint, what do I use? Golden color, I think it's called. Yeah, sprayed through an airbrush. I also paint more than I did. I used to do everything with the airbrush in the early days, but kind of mix it up now. And of course, most of my work now is digital.
Right.
So instead of using an airbrush, I use a pen like this on a graphic tablet.
Okay.
So that pretty much answers the Doris Stokes question.
It certainly does. It certainly does. In all the questions I've asked you, I can't even remember whether I've asked you this one already, but my final question for you was really, of all the iconic album sleeves out there, which one do you think you would like to, apart from your own wonderful work, of course, which one do you think you would have liked to have said, yeah, I designed that?
What, just because of the artwork or because of the band I would have loved to
work
for?
we can go in either direction, really. I mean, something like Dark Side of the Moon, or
yeah, well, I mean, of course I would love to have worked for I mean, Pink Floyd were the band that really was my entry point, if you like. I mean, I was a member of the fan club.
Hypnosis was there, guys, there.
Huh?
Hypnosis was there, guys. When the
yeah, Hypnosis, and of course, how can you possibly set yourself, against something like that? I mean, Storm Thorgerson was a genius, and I think all of the artists, cover artists that came after, kind of were in awe of him and standing on the shoulders of giants and all that stuff. But
I mean, you're not a fan of Roger Dean, but so you'd something like Santana Abraxas, I think you mentioned. Is that the sleeve that you would like to have been?
Yeah, I would say no. I was a fan of Rogers. I mean, I went to a few exhibitions of his just to find out the wiring under the boards, just to see how he did it. He stuck the figures on. That's interesting. So he did the landscape first, and then stuck the figures on some of them. So I thought, oh, okay. And then I saw an exhibition of Peter Blake and saw that he used collage.
Sergeant Pepper, isn't it?
Sergeant Pepper, and, etc. So I thought, so being an artist, you don't have to just do this. You can do that. Maybe mix it up a bit, which is what I tried to do with Clutching at Straws, not too successfully, but. But in terms of, yes, my favourite piece of art would probably be Abraxas.
Yeah.
For Santana, I mean, I'm in awe of that painting, and nowadays Alex Gray's work for Tool, I think, is stunning, absolutely stunning.
Anyway, Mark, I'd like to thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll leave you to get on. Let's. You can see that I've got, I'm semi-retired. I'm sort of. Shall I go for a walk? Shall I prune the roses?
Yeah.
No, I have got a job to do. I keep prevaricating. So this was a very, very nice piece of prevarication, Barry. I've enjoyed our chat very much.
Good. Thank you so much. Good luck with whatever you're working with, and enjoy your semi-retirement.
Yes, thank you. All right.